Bill and Lisa. Please, could you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Lisa Giruzzi. I here with my husband Bill, and we live in upstate New York, Albany, about 2.5 hours north of New York City. And we're happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Bill, could you tell me about your experience with illness, please?
November of 2019, I was sitting in my apartment watching television, and all of a sudden the TV looked like to me like it was floating through the air. And when I tried to walk, I couldn't walk in a straight line. I kept falling to the right. And after some time of deliberating with my wife, we decided to go to the ER, and it turned out I had had a mild ischemic stroke. The following week, I was back to work, and they found that I have this rare blood disorder where my blood overclots. So I had to go on, they put me on a blood thinner and as well as aspirin. I had a doctor actually tell me, he said, "I don't think you'll ever have another stroke again." He said, I think that, you were lucky, and we think we know the problem. And so he left me with a lot of confidence, and everything was going fine. And then, as everyone in the world knows, in March 2020, COVID hit, and they sent. I still work for state government here in the States, and they sent us home, and I was working from home. And one day, after Lisa and I got done working, I moved my head in a particular direction, and I felt something in the back of my head. I thought it was like a muscle spasm. We were about to do a workout in our apartment, and Lisa's like, "Well, do you feel like you can work out?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So we tried to work out, and then I was like, "Well, I have to sit down," and then I had to go lay down. And then at some point, I was like, for some reason that I don't know, I had to get on the floor. And Lisa's like, I'm calling the ambulance," because we were hesitant to call the ambulance because, again, COVID was, just breaking, and we didn't know. Nobody knew at that time what was safe, what wasn't safe. And so the ambulance came, and they ended up taking me to the ER. And by the time I got to the hospital, I was unconscious and paralyzed. And it had turned out that I had a blood vessel burst in the back of my head somewhere, and I had something called a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is not a stroke. It's not in. I guess it's not in the brain. It's a bleed that's on the brain. So my brain, because of what they told my wife is, and she'll be a better historian for some of this than I will, because I was unconscious and all that. But they said that what may have been a minor bleed was made massive by the fact that I was on blood thinner. And so, and I'm going to actually let Lisa take over if that's okay, because she's, like I said, she's a better historian of what sort of happened next.
Well, that was a pretty good summary. But when they wouldn't let me go to the hospital because of COVID, so I kept trying to call and call and call because he wasn't picking up his phone. I didn't know what had happened in the ambulance. He lost consciousness. So about an hour maybe after he left here, I was able to get through to a doctor, and they said, "You better get down here because we don't know if he's going to make it." And that was the first I knew that it was serious. And so I got a ride down there, and again, it was COVID, so it was very scary, and all of it was scary, and he didn't know I was there. So we all had these little areas, and I was like pacing and pacing, and hours weren't going by. I finally found out what was going on, and that they said they had to do a procedure the next morning to try to relieve or to find out what was going on. And so I said, where do I go? Where do I sit? Because they were bringing him to a special ICU. And they said, well, you have to leave. And I said, I'm not leaving. My husband's going to have a procedure. You're telling me there's 50-50 chance he might not make it. I'm not leaving, you know. And again, it became a very tense situation. They were trying to calm me down, and I was near hysteria. I was appropriate, but as you might understand, I was getting escalated, and they finally said they were going to get security. And I said, great, I'm going to call the TV station and you can talk to the reporter. I mean, I was trying anything to stay. And then as they were walking away to get security, I had a moment, or I don't know how long it lasted, but it's hard to put words to, but I had this moment that came over me where I just saw that there was nothing for me to do, that it was more like a knowing than any kind of words or anything coming to me, but there was this knowing of this wasn't up to me. And all the energy I was putting into this was not necessary. And that everything was all right. It wasn't like I knew Bill was going to survive or any of that. It was more that all was well. And again, words fail me, but it was one of those moments where it felt like time stopped, and I was just had a sense of peace, and I didn't understand it. I could still see all the, not see, but I could still, I felt like I was witnessing all the thoughts that were going through my head. But they weren't affecting me for some reason. And so when they came back and said, you know, security's on the way, I said it was okay. I was going to go, and, you know, could I just see my husband? And so that's when I went in to see him, and little did I know that I wouldn't see him again for 4 weeks because he was in ICU. And then just one other thing is he started to recover. They found there was no aneurysm, that he started to recover, get he knew who I was, you know, this was all through FaceTime. But then he had another bleed, and he almost died again about a week later.
It was a GI bleed.
It was a GI bleed this time. And again, he had started to recover, but the effects of the second bleed, because it took him a couple days to find where it was, he got very weak. And so he was on a ventilator for over almost 2 weeks, and then, you know, started to recover. And we were fortunate he never got COVID, but he was incredibly weak and heavily sedated for that entire time because of being on a vent. So then he had to go into rehab for physical rehab, and they understandably pushed him out as fast as they could because they just didn't want him to get COVID. So he was then sent home, and we didn't really have any help. And I will say it as many times as people ask me, were it not for that insight that I had, or epiphany in the ER, I don't know how I would have made it through, because there was a sense of we could handle whatever came our way. And I wish I knew where that came from, because I give it to everyone.
So Bill, what was it like for you?
When they took me in that ambulance that day, and this is the only distinct memory I have after they took me in the ambulance, or after they were taking me down the hallway in the gurney or whatever, it never ever crossed my mind that might be the last time I would see my wife. It wasn't even a possibility in my head. And I don't mean that like I knew I was going to get better. I just mean I had no idea it was coming. I have absolutely zero recollection of it. I don't even have a memory of somebody, you know, coming to me and telling me what happened to me. My very first like clear recollection is they had to do a swallow test to see what kind of food I could eat in the hospital because of having been intubated. And I didn't even I was sort of like, why are we doing this test? And, because again, I didn't have any memory of it, which I'm really grateful for. Because I imagine how my body was, is really difficult. So at some point, I think it was like around May 20th of 2020, they released me and I came home, and I don't have a lot of memory other than being really agitated all the time. I couldn't settle my body down. I couldn't focus. Apparently, according to Lisa, again, some of it I don't remember. I couldn't sleep. I would be pacing all night long. And there were moments of, I don't know what else to call it. I don't mean to be demeaning, but we call it like moments of crazy, where I thought there was a Chinese family living in our bedroom. I kept asking where they were. I kept asking where our twins were. We don't have any children. Things like that. Well, I was just making it up, and I don't have any recollection of doing that. But it was grueling. It was sort of like when I wanted to rest, I couldn't rest, and when I was forced to do something, like they had PT coming and OT coming, occupational therapy and physical therapy coming to the house, I didn't want to do that. So it's like, I think when we tell the story, we say all of it because it's sort of the comeback, the healing, where I've come, where I am today, is just, it's remarkable to me. I tell people I feel like a walking miracle, but I don't necessarily mean that in a religious way. I just mean I have no explanation for why I healed so well. And I've had doctors tell me, like, you shouldn't be here. And I go, I know, but here I am. About 4 weeks after going back to work, I was working from home one morning, and I had I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was a massive panic attack. I'd never experienced anything like that, including throughout the year of all the anxiety that I went through. This was like a whole other level of anxiety. My body was in what seemed like a constant state of terror. And it was driving me mad because I clearly knew there was absolutely nothing to be afraid of. I was in my own home with my wife, safe. And I was freaking out. And what by freaking out, I just mean like I would have like 5 panic attacks back to back to back to back to back. Like it was not uncommon for me to have that. And so I tried to sort of suck it up, hoping that it would pass. For like 2 weeks, I was working. I was working with seeing people at work, doing projects and all that, and
All virtually.
And then I can't do it. I don't know what's going on. So I had the doctor pull me out of work again, expecting that I honestly thought I'd be out of work a month, and I ended up being out of work for an entire year again.
And how did you come through that?
Well, honestly, we tried everything we could think of.
A lot of research.
A lot of research, a lot of different kinds of therapy, different kinds of therapists, different kinds of drugs. We decided to try electroconvulsive therapy, a shock therapy. And that really impacted my memory, even more so. I don't have any memories from January through April of 2022. I woke up one morning, and for some reason, for me, the mornings were always the worst in terms of my anxiety. I woke up every morning just wishing I had died during the middle of the night. I felt so awful, and wondering whether I was going to have to end my life, because I didn't know when was this going to end. And then this one particular morning, I woke up that way, and then for some reason, sort of like similar to what happened with Lisa in the ER, my mind went really quiet, and I had this epiphany, and the epiphany was, the words were, "It's all lies." I honestly don't know what that means. I mean, I have an idea of what it means just based on all the things I've studied over my life, but I don't honestly know what that meant. Um, all I can tell you that was even more powerful was in that I don't know how long it lasted, maybe a minute, probably less. I felt good for the first time, and I can't tell you how long. And I was like, oh, there it is. Like whatever I'm experiencing day to day, I thought I had lost the ability to feel good. That's why I was so hopeless. I thought I can't live this way for the rest of my life. And I thought I was done. I just thought I'm either going to have to learn to live with this misery, or I just hope that life will take me. But I saw that I could feel good. And then I started using that good feeling to sort of navigate my way out of the anxiety. So what that looked like is the next morning I woke up again feeling like crap, feeling awful. And rather than stew in it in my bed, and sort of try to figure it out and analyze it and try to get rid of it, I would say the words that were spoken came to my mind. I said, it's all lies. And I would say, get up, get out of bed, go do something, go get yourself into life. And I just kept finding ways to catapult myself into life and catapult myself into life. So I would go for a walk. To be honest with you, that's what it looked like at first. I would just go for a walk. And then it was maybe go to the store for Lisa and go get some groceries. And I just kept looking for ways. And then from that day forward, I started getting better and better and better and better and better without really any explanation. Was it the ECT? Was it everything that I've done? Was it that moment of clarity? I don't know. And I went back to work at the end of June of 2022, and just keep getting better and better and better and better. Do I still experience anxiety and panic attacks? Yep. But now they've definitely lessened in severity, but now when they come, I just let them be. I'm not afraid of them in the same way. And it's like I've said to people, if you had told me when that anxiety started, if the healing, what would be key to the healing is I would learn to allow it, I would have said, you're mad. There's no way you can allow this. But now I'm able to just let it be.
That's so beautifully expressed. Thank you so much, Bill. Lisa, how have you come to terms with everything that's happened?
I mean, he's doing amazing. And if he still sometimes struggles in the morning, I don't feel like I have to take care of him, because he's got this, where before, in the morning, he would wake up and the first thing he'd start talking about would be killing himself. Excuse me. So I spent a lot of time having my energy and attention on him and making sure he was okay. And so there isn't that, I don't need to do that because I know he's fine. He'll have a panic attack or he'll have whatever mood he has, just like me. And it'll come, it'll go. If he needs something, he'll ask. Sometimes he needs me to just be with him, and that's totally fine. Sometimes I need that too. So the thing that there's so many things I'm grateful for, but one of the things I'm grateful for is I don't have any resentment about what happened. I'm not saying that there weren't times during the 2 years of his recovery that I didn't have resentment. I did. But because of the nature of how things unfolded and how much we've grown individually as a couple, just as humans in our relationships with people, there's just a peace around it that I'm grateful not grateful that it happened. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I'm grateful that who we were and how it evolved in our lives created a space for deeper connection than I ever thought was possible. It's opened up something in our relationship that I didn't know was possible. And so I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful every day. I mean, I don't take things for granted like I did before this happened. You know, we just celebrated 25 years yesterday, a wedding anniversary, and it you know, I don't know how to put words to the gratitude I have for the little things, like, you know, helping with the laundry, or, you know, us making the bed together, or whatever. It's just like, this wasn't possible a few years ago. And now it's just, there's just so much extraordinary in the ordinary.
Lisa, can you talk to us about your experience of Bill's 2-year recovery as his carer?
So when this happened, I think it was a natural place for me to go, but the good thing was I didn't do it from a place of, I don't know how to say it, like, oh my God, he needed me. It was all up to me, you know. Again, there were moments of that, but because of the insight that I had at the emergency room, because of the support I got afterwards from several people, I knew to relate to Bill like he was already all right, and he had a lot of feelings and thoughts about it. The neurosurgeon, the neurologist told me two things. One was they felt that he was going to have a full recovery. So because I knew that he was going to be, that 100% recovery was possible, that was very helpful. And the other thing I saw in him was his resilience, because despite the fact that he struggled day in and day out, he never stopped looking for a way to feel better. Not once. Sometimes it was frustrating as hell, to be honest, because when something didn't work, he wouldn't necessarily try it again. He would just go on to the next thing. And so that was a struggle sometimes. But what I saw in that was the health in it. There was so much health in that. Even though he would talk about killing himself, even though he struggled to get out of bed some days, he was always looking for feeling better. And so that spoke to me and let me know that he wanted to live, that he wanted to get better. Another thing the neurosurgeon told me before he came out of ICU was that I needed to take care of myself, that the attention was all going to be on Bill when he came home, but if I wasn't my strongest, that it would not, it would be really hard to do what I needed to do to take care of him. So before he even got out of ICU, once the danger had passed, I was really structured around eating well, sleeping, exercising, doing things to take care of myself, because that's what the neurosurgeon told me to do. And I kept that up. I mean, I couldn't sleep very much. I slept when he slept, but I made sure we had nutritious food. I did the best I could with that kind of thing, because and making sure we got exercise, whether it was a 10-minute walk outside or anything at all, because the neurosurgeon was so adamant about that. And I don't know why I knew that we needed to just take it one day at a time. I mean, I could tell you make up all kinds of stuff, but that's what we did. We just, what are we going to do today? And it's funny, somebody told me, somebody who had also gone through a catastrophic situation with their spouse, said to me, 1% better every day. And in 100 days, you're 100% better. And that made sense to me. So we tried to find ways to be 100% better. I mean, 1% better we didn't try to do it all at once. You know, it was one day at a time, and that's what we did. And it wasn't always pretty. You know, we talk about it now in ways that, you know, there's so many details you can't go into. But we'd be like, okay, tomorrow's a new day. What do we get? You know, we learned today, we'll do better tomorrow. And that's what we focused on.
What did you guys learn about your own inner resilience and well-being?
The first thing I would say is that it's way stronger than you think. That's it for me. I mean, and I have seen it in other human beings too. And I've seen it in Bill. There's a life force within us that moves in one direction, and that's towards health. And we have to get out of the way. You know, I had a lot of thinking about how I was doing. You know, I had a lot of thinking about how he was doing. And that was not helpful or relevant. What was helpful and relevant was to be present as much as I possibly could. And for me, that presence and resilience are the same or similar, using different words. It's just, there's a beingness to life that knows what's next. And intellectually, we try to, I should say, I try to get, oh, I know how to do this, or you know what? I never took care of a human being with a brain bleed, and I had no idea what I was doing. So maybe that was why it turned out, because I knew I didn't know. And I just kept doing what made sense, I mean, let me say this one thing and then I'll leave it to Bill, but he would wake up in the middle of the night after sleeping maybe a half hour, an hour, and tell me, I have to go to the ER. I'm dying. I have to go to the ER. And of course it's COVID. So he's not going to the ER. And I have a little bit of medical training. And so I would just sit him down and say, okay, before we call, let's get your blood pressure. Let's get your, you know, pulse. Let's get your temperature. Like, I just do those things. I didn't know why to do that, but just doing that would calm him down and he would go back to sleep. So it was things like that. Like, it's not like it's in a textbook. Oh, if your husband wakes up in the middle of the night, blah, blah, blah. No, it was just trusting that resilience to just do what was next. And then I also had to trust that if he really did need to go to the ER, I would know that too. Right? It's not like I suddenly thought I had a medical degree. I didn't, but I believed and thought, I don't know, those are not the right words. I would know, like when he had to go to the hospital the second time, I just knew that was what was needed to happen. So resilience is within each of us, and it's count onable. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, I think for me, number one is, with respect to resilience, is getting that I have resilience. You know, I never related to myself as really someone who had it. And then I got through, you know, it's one thing when you're sort of on the other end, sort of the other side of it all, and you can go, wow, you know, you can sort of look back and reflect on the resilience. But the other thing that I really see about resilience for myself is it doesn't feel the way you think it's going to feel, because it was agony. So I don't even know, like, I don't even know how to talk about resilience, because it was agony. And there was a lot of suffering. And I kept, especially in the second year, I kept looking for a way out. You know, not knowing that the way out for me was to sort of stand still. But so, you know, I guess when I've heard the word in my life, resilience, I thought there'd be this other quality to life that would make what you're going through not feel as bad as it feels. No, it's as bad as it feels, and somehow you can get through it. And somehow you make it through it. Because there were times that I didn't want to, but something about the ability to deal with the agony of it and grow from it. So, while again, as Lisa said, I would never wish it upon anyone, I would never wish it for myself again, I am incredibly grateful that it all happened. Because I am more alive, more happy, generally, more engaged with life than I was for the first 50 years of my life. So it was a gift, and it was a hard gift.
Thank you guys so much. Such a beautiful interview, such a beautiful conversation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.